Everyone, we made it. Episode 1, Father in Training Podcast. Fours are still held up, fusing fathers for fellowship. That's the mission, that's the goal. Before we get into today's topic, I'm trying not to timestamp these because I just want them to be timeless. But it took a lot for me to get going today. I'm not going to lie, or over the weekend. So I'm going to go out of chronological order just for a moment. Just talk about a current event. So the hoodie today, the hat today, it's not by coincidence. I'm a diehard Dallas Maverick fan, but my default team, since I'm in La La Land, is the Los Angeles Lakers. It's my old man's favorite team, and his backup team is the Mavericks. In true fatherly fashion, Saturday night, I was putting my daughter to bed, second oldest. I was in her room, and I just normally wait a little bit while she calms down, right? Nothing new. And sometimes in my family, between my lady, the kids, they like to make me the butt of the joke. So I'm upstairs, living my best life. Daughter's going down. She's almost asleep. I'm getting ready to come downstairs, join the family, watch movies, talk noise, whatever it may be. I get a text. I look at the text. Luka Doncic has been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. No exaggeration, just like all the things that you've heard up until this point. Everybody's like fake, whatever. So I'm just like, okay, I'm not buying into this. And then she replies, I'm serious. So it's in the family group text. They reply, I'm serious. Okay. So I don't go to ESPN right away anymore. I like to go to a website called realgm.com. Not sure if you heard of it, but it seems like they're usually a lot faster to the source. And I'm like, okay, I didn't see anything there. Then I went to then I went to ESPN, didn't see anything there. And I'm like, yeah, just as I thought. So I put the phone down. Again, proceed to watch my beautiful baby fall asleep, fatherly duties, fusing fathers for fellowship on my own in this given time, just doing my dad thing, right? Okay. I get another text from a good buddy of mine, former professional colleague, and he sent me the same thing, but his version, asking me if I'm okay. And the Lakers about to win the championship. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I was just like, hey, I just got this earlier. This isn't real. I'm not sure what the hoax is, but this isn't a real thing. He doubles down and sends me the arena breakdown for the now current cost of tickets at crypto.com. And I'm like, wait a minute. Photoshop doesn't work this fast, so there's no way. So then I go back to my website and I see breaking news. And I assure you, if I had been recording, I would load that B-roll footage up of me and my distraughtness for the rest of Saturday night. Because I just couldn't believe it. Didn't understand how, why, who hurt who in the Dallas Mavericks front office. But when I found out it was true, I was like, okay, this is a real thing. This is happening. And for the life of me, I was trying to wrap my head around it, but I just couldn't. Ultimately, summing things up, before I sum it up, so the number one person I like to talk shop with is my old man, OG father in training. So I called him, he didn't pick up. And my thought was, out of all the times that you can possibly fall asleep or go to sleep early, you do it on this night. And then what made it even more hilarious is he called me the next day, like, what took you so long? I've been waiting for you to call me. Anyway, I digress. Just, OG father stuff. So back to the story. He didn't pick up. I didn't know where to turn. By this time, all of the pundits are getting it. All the sports news, social media is on fire. And I'm like, this can't be. I just don't get it. But where I was going was ultimately at the end of the day, if Anthony Davis can stay healthy, and I've always said he's the most dynamic player that we've ever seen, but if you can't stay healthy, it's hard to stay on the court and contribute. But if he can keep his health together, I see the vision. And obviously Kyrie Lively has to get better. I see the vision. Now, the Lakers side, man, oh man, are they set up. Because regardless if he was 270, 370, 470, the fact that even at these out-of-shape conditions, he's still averaging 28 and 9 and 10 or whatever the other two stats are and rebounds and assists, out of shape, that's insane. And I always knew if he had a chance to get with Bron and see what it's like to truly work, things were going to be unbelievable. And here we are. So represent the Warren Lotus Lakers hoodie and obviously the OG Dallas Maverick fitted because, I supported both. I live in LA now, so that's exciting. But home's always home, and it's still Mavs, gang, gang, gang. So thank you for that little sidebar. I just wanted to get it out. Every now and then I may open with a rant. I may close with a rant, hence the wind down section. But in this particular instance, I just needed to be transparent and just explain what really threw me off this weekend. Now, I'm not mad like how I tapped in with the local media and watched some of the Fox 4 news back home in Dallas, and some of these, guys and ladies were just out there losing, and like, it's still Mavs gang gang. But at the same time, I'm not trading my allegiance. I'm going to rock out with it. I've seen worse. I've seen crazier trades. Let's not forget that Rondo trade that we made where everybody thought that was going to be the point guard of the future. Him and Carlisle butted heads. Next thing you know, he disappeared. And then he did have that cold game against Boston where I think he went off for like 29 and didn't miss. Go on your favorite social media platform and relive that. So we've seen worse. Let's not forget that. But anyway, let's start the show. Okay, so we're here, and this episode is going to be officially episode 1. There may be a 1.5 coming, but the title of this episode is 9/21/2022. What's the significance behind 9/21/2022? That day represents the day I found out I was going to be a father, and hence be able to even start a journey like I'm doing now, where I'm chronicling, talking about fatherhood and fusing fathers for fellowship, for still held high. So if you bear with me, I just want to walk down memory lane and just tell you what I remember to the best of my recollection and how that was the beginning of my life changing forever for the better. So at this time, I was working for an organization and I was doing well. I was in management. I was professionally. One of the things that was always important to me is get in and lead some things. I just felt like it was always a gift. It's never been a power trip. It's more just I felt like leadership was something that was a calling. Leadership, in my opinion, is being able to hold people accountable while still moving the needle and just safeguard not only the company's best interest, but your people's best interest, most importantly. And then being comfortable having difficult and uncomfortable conversations. One thing that I always felt like I did fairly well. So with that being said, I was with an organization who bought another organization, and I'm at work one day and I'm getting ready to walk into a meeting, and I get a call from my then manager saying, "Hey, got something to talk to you about. It's top secret. This is real cryptic." And hindsight, he made it more cryptic than what it should have been. That's just who he is. So, you got to meet people where they are. He was like, "You need to call so-and-so right now." And this particular so-and-so, to be unnamed, was one of the officers of the company. Swell lady, all things considered. So I reach out to so-and-so, and she gives me more of the rundown of the opportunity. "Hey, we're doing a mass restructuring at one of the companies, and I think you're the person to come in and run the West or help run the West. You slow down, but essentially running the West. Music to my ears, right? You know, it's like Kanye said, what do you think we work for to push a so-and-so RAV for? And that's not the case, right? I want it all. I don't think there's anything wrong with baking your cake and eating it too, as long as it's your cake. So in my mind, I'm like, this is my cake. I'm ready for it, right? These are the things that I've been taking the mental reps for. These are the things that I've been practicing for, the difficult conversations I've endured. It all culminates up to this type of moment right now, right? Because as much as I'm thinking about my individual game, my selfish game, because it was me, fi me back then, milk it, milk it. But anyway, it's one of those things where I said, okay, God, thank you for this. I'm ready to step up to the challenge. And then I also thought about the unborn kids that I knew nothing about up until this point, because I always thought the higher I ascended, the more financially sound, the more dynamic I became as a leader, the more financial security, the more doors that would open, and the more I can start building a different type of legacy outside of the house, right? So all these things are great. I'm probably shaking at this point when I get this message. So I'm like, wow. Because I had one of those things just, again, going back to the old sports background where it's you look forward, but you also focus on the now. And I was in a role where my team was vibing. They rocked out with me. I rocked out with them. Even the difficult associates, right? We all had a mutual understanding, respect of what the main thing was. So I'm like, cool. Okay. Again, one of the things that I was taught in sports is you don't pass one to get one. Translated meaning if an opportunity presents itself and it makes sense, when you just look at a high level overview, take that opportunity, because you never know when that opportunity is going to present itself again or if it will present itself again. Okay. So with that being said, I've been on the wrong side of that where I was ready, but the optics didn't align for me. I didn't want to drive longer distances than what I probably would have at that time. I couldn't see the forest beyond the trees back then. Now, granted, I was 22 probably, so we're talking about a good chunk of change ago. And now, fast forward to 2022, this opportunity presented itself again in a different fashion where it's like, I don't know what I'm walking into. I'm going to ask all the qualified questions that I feel like I need to, but at the end of the day, I'm not passing this opportunity up, because up until this point, I had a decade of leadership where I felt that I've seen different personalities, good, bad, and different. I've won awards as an individual contributor. I've won awards as a team leader, a leader of men and women. I've been in strategy sessions. I've stood up against bullies professionally, and I was unscathed, right? Bloody, but unbowed. Shout out to Omega Psi. So it was one of those situations where this is my time is what I'm thinking. So I'll jump off that now. There was a couple other red tape things that I had to think about, or I was asked to think about, just a follow-up call or two, but more or less the opportunity to be a vice president of an organization presented itself. And not to bring race into it, but I'm bringing race into it. As a 30-something-year-old Black man at this time, I was doing it for bigger significance than you probably could ever imagine, unless this is something that you live, right? And that's what made it that much more special. All the adversity that I had just overcome, all the trials and tribulations that I was going through during that time, and for God to say, now is the time for this opportunity, I was just smitten beyond all belief. I was just thanking him, just thinking about all the sweat equity, the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into up until that point to even be in the situation, to be considered, yet offered a position. So now it's time to talk to the fam. Call my lady. She was making moves at the time. I want to say she was in Colorado. So I call her. I'm just like, hey, woo wop de wham. Here's the situation. What you think? And she was just like, what? This just happened today? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, today. And I'm like, literally like 45 minutes or an hour ago. And she's like, wow, that's exciting. And I'm thinking she's just taking it back because it came out of nowhere. She had the same type of reaction, maybe more so of a shock element, because we were in a good place, all things considered. She was happy with what she was doing, for the most part. I was happy with what I was doing, not complacent either one of us, but we were in a situation where we were like, okay, chugga chugga choo choo. Shout out to all the people who know that phrase, who have kids that are in that age, and they watch the little super simple songs. This is a little shout out for them if you have young kids. I don't listen to adult music anymore, so we were on the chugga chugga choo choo train, right? And then we just finished the conversation. I'm like, hey, I got to make one or two more calls, but I just wanted to let you know. So I'm like, cool. So somehow she beat me home, even though she was out of town. But nevertheless, she's at home. I'm coming in from work, and I open the front door. And think about like a surprise situation. So those of you watching visually, it may be easier to picture the imagery, or maybe those that are just listening audibly, close your eyes and just think about a surprise party where you walk in a door, balloons fall and hit you. You got the congratulations sign, different things like that. So this is what I walked into because she's super creative. So I walked into the casa, and as soon as I opened the door, she had the balloons ready to fall. My old English bulldog met me at the door. Shout out to Engine, gone but never forgotten. And the eldest baby was there, right? So my dog, she was 16 at that time, and my lady, they all there, got the sign congratulating me. I'm like, this is amazing, right? Just felt real good. I'm like, man, it's surreal. So we kind of unpacked the day. I get out of my work clothes. We're just vibing as a family. I must have went on a run later that day. Shout out to Physical Fitness. And I remember she asked me to go sit outside with her, my lady. And I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. Didn't think nothing twice about it. So we went and sat out on the patio furniture, and she got a bowl of ice cream. She's like, eat some ice cream with me. I'm like, whatever, And not ideal after running, but hey, I'm on the road to perfection, if that even is such a thing that I can get. I like ice cream, but now I have a better ice cream that I enjoy. But anyway, so we're sitting down, and she has the bowl of ice cream. We're just talking or whatever, and I'm kind of just like looking off or whatever. And she hands me the ice cream. I don't know if she handed me the bowl. All this is on video, by the way. But she hands me either the bowl or the spoon. And I'm a very meticulous person. Shout out to the closet studio, right? I'm in my closet, not in the closet. But I usually know where everything is in my house, let alone my life. So when she handed me this spoon, I was like, whose spoon is this? And I just couldn't stop talking about this spoon. Now, granted, it's covered with ice cream, so I didn't see what the base said. But anyway, I'm talking about this spoon for at least 30 seconds or whatever. And then she was like, would you just take a bite? So I take a bite of the ice cream that's on the spoon, and then I start seeing words appear. And I was like, what does this say? And I said something crazy like, I'm a baby or something wild. And then you know how when you take a bite of something that's like liquid or just has some viscosity to it, not the best idea word to use with food, but it just has some movement to it. So I took another bite to completely cleanse the spoon so I can see the words. And what the spoon said was, you're going to be a daddy, exclamation mark. So let's recap. The date is September 21st, 2022. I learned that I have an opportunity to step up and step over as a vice president within my organization, late or mid to early late 30s. Never been done before. First of its kind within the organization. And I also learned I'm going to be a father. The euphoria that I felt, the emotions that I felt, the out of body experiences that I felt was second to none. And if I watch the video or if I sit here and just really think about it, I can place myself back into that moment and just be like, wow, what an unbelievable day that was. And she did a good job after we embraced, and I was like, oh, thank you, God. And, those type of things. And like my surprise subsided. I gave her a hug, and then I just started thinking about, is it going to be a boy? Is it going to be a girl? And then she explained like her vantage point. When I called her, she had just taken a pregnancy test like maybe a day or two earlier, and it showed that she was pregnant. And she took a couple more and said the same thing. So in her creative way, she found a way to surprise me, and boy, did she ever. So again, 9/21/2022 represents the first day of the best time in my life. And it was also the scariest because I'm coming from being just a guy who's outside, living his best life, not worrying about any consequences. I mean, I'm not breaking the law, but in a situation where you got a couple bucks, you got your health, you got your wellness, you can go to sleep late, you can wake up early if you want, or you can not sleep at all with no ramifications. And there's no real person or persons that you now have to nurse, feed, and grow to a functioning member of society. 16-year-old, she was already in the root and a groove where typical 16-year-old, they don't want to deal with their parents, guardians, whatever the case is. Throw them an iPhone, throw them a couple books, let them have some social media access, some snacks. You don't even see them. Anybody who's really dissecting this, I don't want you to think that she went by the wayside, right? But all of these emotions about, wow, this is getting ready to happen, and the fatherhood that I've always wanted to be an accessory of my professional life is actually getting ready to happen. And not only is it happening, I'm getting the most profound news of my life possibly at the same time. So again, I was just thanking God, just unbelievable opportunity that was bestowed on me. So super excited about that piece. One of the things that I said in episode 0 is that all my kids were planned, especially this planned pregnancy that we're talking about now. This was a situation where we were trying, and what's interesting about trying, so let's just switch to that. You have situations where you have oops babies. You have situations where you have planned pregnancies. You have situations where you have planned pregnancies via surrogacy. You have planned pregnancies via IVF. And then you just have situations, the dark side that we don't condone, we don't want to talk about, where it was forced upon you. But in this situation, I can proudly say that we tried. What I want to talk about now, what was interesting about trying, is that I'm thinking that, all right, once it's time to have a week pullout game, these babies were just going to come flying out. Wasn't the case. We probably tried for right around half a year with no success. And I don't know, I'm new to it, so I don't know if that's a lot of time or a little amount of time, but just based off some things that I was reading, I know that when I was talking to my doctor, that if it had been another month or two, that I probably was going to go get a deeper examination to make sure all the testosterone levels and everything were checked out. Obviously, ladies, they have their routine appointments. She was being checked out regularly, just making sure all her reproductive organs were firing correctly. Long and short, they were, but it's a different type of I don't want to say stress or focus that you have where you're actively looking to have a baby versus you having casual encounters, you just having sex, and it just seems like, whoop, you're pregnant. But when you have that willfulness around you or that mindfulness, like, yeah, this is what I want, it seems like just from people that I've spoken to, things that I've read, it takes a little bit longer, especially that first one. Now I joke and say that, she's so fertile because I broke those floodgates back open that I can look at her and she's going to get pregnant. Hence how we have Texas triplets. But in this particular case, I know it took at least 6.5, 7 months before we finally got that, okay, I am officially getting ready to be a father because she's pregnant. Life's different. Now, I'm still going through this process, but when you go from being on top of the world, your version, right? Just going on my standards, just, having a lot of different things that your beck and call to becoming a family man, things change rapidly, right? And I felt like I was pretty amenable to change. Like I could go with the punches. And it was one of those things where you just can't get ready for it. One of the things that I tried to challenge myself to do was be 90% out of your selfish state by the time you start having a family. If I'm being honest with you, dads and parents or whomever this may touch, I was probably 60% with a curve at best out of my selfish state while learning I'm going to be a father. And that percentage probably should have been 75% at the least, but I was at 60 because I still was under the impression where I still want to have that cake and eat it too. But now, if you're going to have that cake and eat it too, you have to cut slices versus taking a fork and just digging in. And those are the life lessons and the learning things where I challenge myself every day and to this point to get better at. Because I like nice things. I like shiny things. You work hard, you play hard. Deion Sanders always says you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you make a lot of money. And up until a certain point, I felt like that was some legit things that was happening, right? In this particular situation, I was in a good situation. I had just got the position that I was telling you about, having the baby. Everything's great. But then there were a couple hiccups, which we probably won't talk about in this episode, but we'll talk about as we get closer, right? But knowing that now I have an egg that's going to go from the most introductory stage to a whole human that's going to walk, talk, think, make their own actions, money, start their own family. It was bittersweet, right? Because I always wanted to be in a position where my kids will never have to go without. I think that's just every parent's goal. Any high functioning parent, right? And I'm not just talking about materialistic things, like just from a wisdom standpoint, from an education standpoint, from an opportunity standpoint. You just want your kids to be afforded more than you had. Exposure leads to expansion. Can't emphasize that enough. And the more that I know, the more dynamic I felt that I can be as a father, training my child in the way that they need to go, or at least think about going where they can start formulating their own opinions. So what did I do? Well, I had to have constant conversations with myself and just remind myself that, hey, it's bigger than you now. It's 100% bigger than you now, right? And within that, knowing that it's bigger than me, this is just my take, right? Something can be bigger than you while you're turning into a father and you're building a family and you're blending a family, but you still can't forget about yourself, right? You can't just go from doing something for several decades and then all of a sudden stop cold turkey. You have to ease your way into it, right? So if you're used to get two things at the same time, try going with one, right? Then when you go from that one thing, see, can you go from that one thing with half the amount of frequency that you were accustomed to getting it? And then see, can you take that half to a half and that half to a half, so ultimately you realize, hey, you know what? I'm grown out of this, right? Start thinking about different ways to set up retirement. Start thinking about different funds that you can have set up for your kids. Start thinking about changing your insurance premium and comparing which plan makes the best sense, right? Which is going to be something way down the line that we talk about, because I have some strong opinions about that, having been immersed in that field more intimately than I ever thought I would be. Healthcare, that is. Start thinking about who you want as your support system. Who do you want to be around your kids? Whose guiding principles help you up until that point where you were like, hey, this person is proven to be a valuable commodity in my life, and I want them to permeate throughout my kids' lives as well, if not them directly, some of their teachings. Those all these things where I thought about, where I'm just like, 9/21/2022, nothing will ever be the same. But nothing will ever be the same for the betterment, not a detriment. And knowing that, I can live with that. And knowing that I can live with that, I can persevere with that. And I continue to be a father in training and work on this journey that I'm on now. So what I'll say is that I'm proud to be a father. Not all pride is bad. I love the fact that I'm trying to create a platform where I can hold those fours up and fuse fathers for fellowship. Because it's these type of conversations, it's these type of stories where whoever listens to this, wherever this touches, go back to when you found out you were a father. I have some friends, not my story to tell. Maybe they'll end up sharing on the pod where they got news quite the opposite. They were upset. One or two of them I was around. I was able to try to console to the best of my young, ignorant ability. I've had some that have celebrated more than me. I've had some that, unfortunately, maybe had to walk away from their obligations. Again, something I don't condone, but I don't judge, because everybody has something. But I think as a network, as a movement that we're trying to have and build moving forward, as fathers, we have to talk to one another. We have to big up one another and just say, hey, it's not going to be easy. Anything in life is worth fighting for if it's worth having. And we got to figure out how to grow and unite each other. Now, as euphoric as my story may sound, you got this cool job promotion. You have this beautiful new bundle of joy getting ready to come into your life here in 9 months. Things got dark for me. So while this was a euphoric moment, things got pretty spicy real fast. And not only did the spiciness test who I was as a future father in training, but it tested who I was as a man, who I was as a man of faith, who I was as a man who calls himself a leader, and who I was as a man who prides himself on working through difficult conversations. And then some. But the moral of the story is that was that was September 21st, 2022. Years later, I'm still here and I'm starting this platform that I'm excited about. So I know I promised some segments. We're going to get to those segments, but this is just the first half of episode 1. And then at 1.5, I'm going to share a different perspective. And that particular episode is also going to be titled with a date. And then hopefully we'll start getting into our segments that I promised. There's going to be in every episode afterwards, or every episode including 1.5 moving forward. But again, wherever you're finding this is available via clips on TikTok. This is going to be available via clips on Instagram. This is going to be 100% available in podcast form and video form on YouTube. And it's also available on in audio forms on Spotify. So join the movement, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that it's televised, telethon. And I just want to continue to make good content, true content that's true to who I am as a father in training and true to who I am and trying to create a safe network for fathers to commingle, bond, grow together, laugh at my pain, learn from my trauma, grow with my success, right? And by joining the movement, watching these videos, liking, sharing, telling somebody, you never know who it can touch and how it may inspire them. So I appreciate your time. Looking forward to it. And thank you all. Be safe out there. Peace.